I'm Julene Allen, and I'm CEO of Women of Color in the Workplace. Welcome to Conversations for Equal Pay Live. My co-host is COO of Women of Color in the Workplace, Jamie Gathers. She's also the founder of Women of Color in the Workplace Atlanta. And also Maybelline Plessick is our Chief Diversity Officer.
Okay, well, I believe Julene has already mentioned the change of the format. So welcome to the discussion. I'm very happy to be here. And thank you, Jamie and Julene, for inviting me to be the Chief Diversity Officer. So this is definitely a important passion and mission, whether I'm working for my different organizations. This is always something that I've always been passionate about since I was younger. So just to give you a brief background, it all started because I was 8 years old and realized that being a girl was not okay. To give you some context, I lived in different countries. I was born in Papua New Guinea. My parents were in the United States, so we traveled almost 2 or 4 years. So I'm born in Papua New Guinea. My brother was born in Lesotho, South Africa. We lived in the Philippines. We lived in Honduras. Definitely Central America. We've gone through the Kruger Park. So understand some of the culture during apartheid. We were living in that moment as well, where we couldn't just go to any gas station or restaurant unless it was an international designated location. So we've lived through that. Growing up in Honduras, I realized that some of the skills and some of the lessons that we learned as a family and culture wasn't a welcoming environment, right? It wasn't okay to be a lady or girl to do a lot of things that I do. But still, let's talk about the equal pay itself. Where many of us either work in an industry, we work on anything hospitality, it could be caregiving as a parent, right? We do a lot of things that not necessarily equate a monetary conversation, right? So we want to make sure that everyone knows their value, regardless of the type of role that we participate in the community, whether you're not paid officially or you're spending the time, right? So you have value in supporting your family, your children, educating them, being there, especially when your parents are becoming elderly and you have to be the support system for them. So that's part of the main theme, right? As far as making sure that that conversation goes through. Is that something that everybody's agreeable? We definitely welcome everybody's input. We want to be as genuine and authentic and definitely vulnerable as you can. So just share what you're comfortable with. We don't want to force anyone to share, things and they're not comfortable to share it. So it's an open discussion. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Julene, Jamie?
Yeah, I think well said. What an experience and what a life you've had already. Wow, it's impressive.
So I think if you're having trouble unmuting yourself, I am unmuting everyone. But if you have trouble unmuting yourself, just type in the chat box that you want to chime in and intervene in the discussion. That makes sense.
And also, if you have a question that you would like to pose to the group without asking the question yourself, feel free to ask that question in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll ask the question on your behalf without identifying that it came from you.
Yep, we definitely want to respect your anonymity, right? If you're not feeling comfortable to share with your identity, so that's good. And any questions, feel free. This is an open discussion to make sure that we share and speak freely. It's a space for everyone to feel like they belong, right? It's a challenging time. I know many of you have gone through the different changes, especially in the US, with George Floyd, and now recently more violence happening, right, in different states, in Illinois, Kenosha. So there's still continuous struggles here that are happening on top of what we have to do day to day to survive. Unemployment is one of the biggest right now. That's very challenging. I keep hearing the same story, regardless if it's in the United States or even in India. There's a lot in there, especially in India, where they're stuck at home. They're being told they're overqualified, even though they have the degrees. They're not able to get any employment because there's a freeze, which is understandable, right? Because everybody's monitoring the financial economy and socioeconomic impacts. So I definitely want to ask, that's one query that I want to ask. Can anybody relate, at least on the audience, any specific journeys and struggles that you're going through that you feel that you need support from the community as a whole?
It would be interesting to also just chat about, how COVID is impacting, women of color during this time. I know it's hard for working moms, but also, folks like me who don't have children. Just thinking about being afraid to make changes or to ask, if anybody else is afraid to, ask for or try for a change just because of the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, if anybody wants to talk about that.
Absolutely. I welcome that because I know a lot of people have been asking whether they should change careers, even change positions, right? That's a conversation that's ongoing. They're not sure, is it too risky to do it, right? My answer so far that I've been telling people is at least interview, apply, get experience. You're not getting your credit check done during the interview. What I would recommend is if you see an opportunity, whatever it is, even if you're not qualified, just go through the journey. And if you have the time, to just practice, right? Apply for something just to see if this is something that potentially you could get for. So for example, my brother, he was entertaining, probably applying for a company that's not necessarily the best environment, but I told him like, just check it out. You can't always judge the book by its cover. You want to be fair that maybe the opportunity that they say might not be in the job description because it takes conversation to really figure out what they need. So what I recommend is at least attempt it, see what this position is about, whatever that is, because you can always say no and decline and say, you know what, thank you for the opportunity. I believe that this is not the, position or role that I want to be in, but at least entertain conversation. Plus, you never know, you might meet people that are interesting, that are following or doing different journeys that you can set as an example. Does that make sense, Umi?
Yes, and I think, for people like me too, who are happy where they are, I think it's also a good time to branch out. There are so many virtual learning opportunities.
Exactly.
A lot of them are free, and so you can build out your skill set that way. And one thing I've been trying to do is also just go deeper in where I am. To kind of like things that I thought that I couldn't do before because I didn't have time. Now I'm taking those classes, I'm doing those workshops so that and I can really implement those things, at work and grow at work, grow in this time is what I would say.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm happy to hear that. Jamie, you had something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think something that we should always remember is that typically in moments of crisis, there's always an opportunity. So whether it's an opportunity to grow or to take on more or newer experiences where you are, or to look elsewhere, because there are a lot of industries that are exploding because of COVID. Also opportunities for entrepreneurship. There's always an opportunity somewhere. It may not be easy to find it, but there's an opportunity. Touching on what Umi said about self-development and growth, there's always an opportunity for that. While people are working from home and spending more time at home, that's more time to practice that second language or more time to hone in on those skills that you've been developing over the years. And one thing I tell people, if you're not interested in entrepreneurship, always be interviewing. Even if you're happy where you are, always be updating that resume. When you tackle that new project, when you accomplish that new goal, when you get moved to that new position, always be updating the resume, always be networking, always be interviewing. Because it's not about being content with the role that you're in. It's about the role you want to be in 3, 5, 10 years. So always be ready, because if you're always ready, you don't have to get ready. We all know that saying. So yeah.
Perfect. I mean, go ahead.
Another
Jenny.
thing is for working moms, enlisting support. So, realizing that like there are some of us that may be working virtually and also homeschooling our children, but there are other working moms as well that are also homeschooling, right? And working from home. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help, and collaborate with others that are at home and also trying to homeschool their children. Another issue that I've seen arise during COVID is women being offered opportunities that are much lower than what they're used to. And so my advice would be, to negotiate, possibly, maybe not necessarily saying no to the position, but negotiating flexible working hours or possibly working part-time or other types of benefits, things that would allow you to, that would work in your favor.
That's
Agreed.
a, oh,
Go ahead,
I'm
Jamie.
sorry.
Go ahead, Jamie.
That's a great point, Julene, because one thing people should remember when they're interviewing is while money is important and you want to make sure that you have enough money to sustain your household, it's not the end all be all. You want to make sure that when you're negotiating, flexibility is important, making sure that they're willing to work with you, making sure their culture and their benefits support you the way that you need them to be. Because you could be offered a boatload of money and it still not be a great fit. So yeah, making sure that you negotiate other terms is super important as well. And during these times, a lot of people are quick to say, I